I think we're all really excited to have you here, um, because as COVID starts to recede COVID starts slowly receding from our day-to-day lives. I think all of us students are popping our heads up and saying, why does the school still feel so self-isolated? And is architecture self-isolating? And is architecture self-referential? I just mean to say that because Assemble seems to be trying to incorporate their community in their design participation and the design process. So
definitely.
So we're excited to have you here. I guess my first question to you is it's more of your origin. Where does architecture start for you? And how did you end up from childhood to Assemble?
Yeah, good question. I guess for me, I came into it through a bit of a bit sideways, because I didn't study architecture. I studied history and politics at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. And yeah, I grew up in London, and I basically met most of the other people in Assemble during the Cineroleum project in 2010. And I'd been working on basically I suppose since I was a teenager, quite involved in like the rave scene and like kind of squatting and the anarchist community and stuff like that, in London. And I was working with a few friends. We had built some kind of shows for like festivals and things like that. And because of the kind of sound system culture like inherent in the rave scene, that was something that I knew about. And I basically I met them and helped out with the sound kind of audiovisual side of things during the Cineroleum. But I just thought it was a really cool project, and kind of got involved from then on. Yeah,
that's awesome. So so you've taken to design fully now for about 10 years?
Yeah, it's been 11 years now. Yeah, I guess I've been involved in a lot of the stuff that we've built ourselves. So I guess I'm quite a kind of practical person, and I've been involved in construction side of things, and then latterly have been more focused on social projects.
Amazing. And then you're an amazing person to ask. It's what's the role of architectural education in design? Like you from the outside in looking into it, what do you think it has going for it, and what do you think is possibly lacking?
Obviously, I mean, architectural education, provides the industry with ready workers. I mean, that's not controversial or interesting thing to say, but it's obviously the case. And I mean, one thing that we always talk about, or I especially like to talk about, and kind of will come up in the presentation as well, is I think one thing that I think students it's good to think about is like, I think architecture students are taught to, because they're taught to fulfill this role, this kind of economic role of architect or whatever, this role that sits within a system that we have. It's always like fulfilling the brief of the client.
Right.
And a lot of the time people talk to us about stuff like, oh, how do we engage the community when we're designing a building and stuff like that. And I think the important thing for us is not how to engage the community when designing a building, but what the project is in the first place, and whether that project is something that you want to build. Do you want to build an extension for a wealthy person? Do you want to make a wealthy person a bigger house? Is that what you want to do? Is that what you want to put in the world? And if you can find stuff that you want to build, then great. And then you can start thinking about how we're going to make it look nice, stuff like
Right.
that, which is also really important. Don't get me wrong. But like, yeah, I think the most important thing by far is like what the project is. And I've made that mistake lots of times as well. We've learned everything the hard way ourselves. So yeah, I think architectural education could focus more on that. I understand why it doesn't. I mean, people aren't learning politics, they're learning how to make buildings.
Right.
But,
Right.
it's a political act, isn't it? Putting stuff down on the land.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we, what is and I'm not supposing it's quantitative in any way, value, but what is a good way to assess value of a project for our community? Is that asking what the community needs? Is it looking at data? Is it like inherent is some value that we're supposing for the world, which is not problematic to me, but it does ask, how do we assess that? And it takes constant constant reflection on the community. So how do you guys go about that? You guys have a smattering of projects, and there is a core of a core ethic to all your projects. So what's your process of selection, or yeah.
I think that's a really good and difficult question, and I don't think it's one that I certainly could answer very easily, or have seen very, very easy answers for. I think that it's good to understand where you're working. I mean, I've done projects all over the world, but I think that mainly I work in London, where I've always lived, and I feel like my ability to understand what's going on there is 100 times more than somewhere where you've just kind of flown in or parachuted in or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like certainly in London and in many places in the world as well, you kind of see similar things. It's not that there are things that are needed that are, relatively straightforward things that most people agree on, like affordable housing, affordable workspace, and things like that. But I mean, all development's controversial, so I do appreciate that you're never gonna have answers that kind of everybody agrees with, because it's also, everyone agrees that affordable housing is good, but then how that's implemented, or what that ends up looking like, or where it is, or what you get rid of. In the UK, everything's developed, like literally everything.
Right.
Like, there's obviously parts of the country that are not cities, or most of it, but that it's still developed agriculturally, you know, or the parts that aren't developed to some kind of area of national beauty, or you know, something
Right.
like that. So you're always replacing something. um but yeah, I think it's just a deep kind of understanding of place, really, that leads you to gain some confidence about what you think could be, you know, could be a good thing. But you know, you can start by saying, am I working for a rapacious developer, or am I working for, you know, the local authority, or am I working for, you know, a charity? Or do you know what I mean? I mean, there's questions
Right.
you can ask yourself, I suppose. Am I building, you know, a handbag shop, a Chanel handbag shop, or am I building a homeless shelter? You know, sometimes it's not that complicated.
Right.
You know.
And then, yeah, speaking of just how developed London is, of course, London is, and then you guys really deal with, I don't want to say dereliction, um, but that is which is left over. And I know you guys got your start in pop-up culture, which, yeah, is rave culture, is squatting and like finding beauty in things that the rest of society has turned their back on, you know, these spaces. And um, what are ways that we can better integrate these spaces in communities? Um, so much of American infrastructure is becoming that way. Um, and so yeah, I'm curious what you think.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because I think we've very much moved away from um, pop-up projects,
Right.
because we felt like we were, in that case, in a lot of cases, like quite direct agents of gentrification, or you know, it the pop-up thing, you know, it was, yeah, it's supposed to be like, I guess, you know, it could be like squatting culture, but it's not, because it's like, it's, you know, it has the blessing of, you know, the landowners and the council, and it becomes this kind of like cutesy thing that then leads to
Attracts.
something else, yeah,
Yeah.
which is not what you did, you know. It kind of, yeah, gives this kind of cultural value to something, I suppose, that then allows someone else to make money out of this piece of land. So yeah, I do feel like, if it can be done in a more grassroots kind of way, more than what, you know, more than the way that we worked in our early years, then it can definitely be a force for good. But I think that I don't think that we were really fully aware of like a lot of the bigger forces that were at play, you know, that we were just kind of sort of pawns, really. I mean, maybe not that extreme, but you know.
I understand.
But yeah, I feel like if it's about people taking control of their communities and their spaces, then that's a really good thing, you know. So
And what do you think the role of the designer is in that process then?
I think that the role of the designer in that process is really important, and it's to help people to visualize, you know, what something could be, because especially because, you know, if you want to I guess if you want to persuade people that, you know, something's a good idea, you need to think it through, and you need to make it look good and make it presentable and things like that. And you know, I think that's one of the reasons, you know, that's one of the reasons why the pop-up thing was very successful because it was well presented, it was well, you know, documented, it was all done properly. I think, yeah, I think that's, if you can do that for, say, a community group that doesn't have much resources, then that can be hugely, you know, that can be hugely effective because it makes it real. Instead of just seeming like a load of people complaining about something, it becomes like a thing in itself.
A source of action.
Yeah, exactly. And something that people can kind of get around, you know, or get behind. Yeah.
Okay, Lewis, I want to let you get ready for your lecture, which we're all incredibly excited about.
Great.
But I thank you so much.